Okay, are we ready?
Just one more second.
Okay.
And we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
Alderman Aldred. Chair Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Aldred.
Present.
We have 5 present. We have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll start out with the approval of the minutes from Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. I'll accept a motion on the approval of the minutes from July 10th.
So move.
Second.
I'm
Thank you.
Alderman Boyd.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderman Aldred.
Aye.
Chair Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg. We have 5 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The first item of business this morning is Board Bill number 70. Alderman Shane Cohn, believe he's online here. You're recognized on Board Bill number 70.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Board Bill number 70 is probably a long overdue fix to our current structure with respect to telecommunications. Back in the 1990s, the last century, there was an ordinance that was passed essentially prohibiting the use of cell phones. At the time, and I think I included this in the email, there were just, cell phones were considered a luxury. And so there were, I guess, reports that city employees were charging city government, thousands of dollars for the use of cell phones because of long distance fees, roaming fees, and the like. And so roaming, for those of you that might not be familiar, is when you left your geographic area, usually your area code, you were charged for fees. So then the language was modified to essentially approve a resolution from the Board of Estimate and Apportionment for departmental use of cell phones. There's supposed to be, not that this probably happens, but there's supposed to be an approved list based off of the last amendment to the current ordinance, an approved list of city employees that can use cell phones for business purposes. Obviously, just in the last 5 years, let alone 10, 15 years, there have been tremendous strides in the telecommunications sector, particularly around mobile devices. And even, with our own Board of Aldermen staff, we've had, difficulty getting landlines for new hires, because of just city processes. I'll kind of deflect to that. But, this board bill would allow for cell phone use by city employees, both for the purchase or lease or expenditure of funds for those cell phones and for reimbursement of cell phones that are personal cell phones for professional use. But the idea here is, as we continue to advance in technology, to allow city government to catch up to that and allow department heads the flexibility and opportunity to enter into those agreements and expenditures for cell phones if they deem fit for their city staff for business purposes, not for personal use.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Cohn. I'm going to turn it over to the committee for questions. In order of seniority, Alderwoman Vice Chair, Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
Alderman Oldenburg is trying to join via Zoom. Madam Clerk, if there's a way we can kind of assist him. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for you, Alderman Cone. Can you just talk about if you know best practices in other cities and what they're doing and how we compare in this area in regard to this technology and
Sure. So the ordinance or the board bill that I'm proposing is more in line with what other cities are doing. Our current ordinance that is on the books is obviously very outdated, and most places aren't really doing that. As I mentioned, it was passed at a time when there were just different processes, different fee structures. I think most of us know we don't pay for long distance on our cell phones anymore. So if you're dialing a 636, and yes, 636 used to be considered long distance, even though it's in the St. Louis metropolitan area, we don't get charged long distance for those rates on our cell phones at this point. So there's been a lot of enhancements, and our ordinance just hasn't caught up to it. And I would add, Alderwoman, the ordinance also, or the board bill rather, also refers to ITSA and making sure that any cell phones that are being used for official purposes are in line with ITSA's technology protocols for secure communications and things of that nature, and obviously Sunshine.
Great, thank you. I have no other questions.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Alderman Cone, thank you for your work on this bill. I feel like it's kind of been talked about for quite some time, and I think we've had some instances play out to show where it could be, beneficial. One of my only questions is just that I observed in the bill that there's a portion that says a department's appointing authority or their designee shall approve the issuance of mobile electronic devices and keep a current list of employees with mobile electronic devices along with the serial numbers. Could you just talk a little bit more about how this would look like in practice and implementation? Are there certain employees that you have in mind for getting cell phones, if it includes us, if it would include our staff, if it would include expanding amongst departments, just a little bit more information on who we would imagine this type of policy could benefit and lead to having cell phone devices?
Sure. Me personally, I think that this could be used across the board for city employees, particularly city employees that are in the field doing inspections and things of that nature. So whether that's a health inspector or a building inspector or our neighborhood improvement specialists, I think most of us right now have NIS. They have cell phones, but they're their personal cell phones. And so they're giving out those personal cell phones to constituents, and they're doing city government work on those personal cell phones. That's not really good for transparency. It's not great in terms of being able to sunshine records. It's not great for a variety of reasons. And so I think, being able to provide that autonomy to the hiring authority or their designee is important. The tracking of it would have to come through, kind of in partnership with procurement processes. So, if you're going to enter into an agreement to purchase a cell phone, there's going to be monthly costs that are associated with that. That's going to have to be budgeted for in the departmental budget. There's also going to have to be, tracking or expense reimbursement, depending upon how those are structured through the department. So it's really giving that latitude to the department manager in terms of, identifying which employees they believe to be in, need of those cell phones, and then also allowing them the flexibility to be able to manage the use and reporting of it as well.
And do you foresee that, so for the Board of Aldermen, it would be on President Green's office to figure out if she wants to put cell phones into the budget and for which staff or for which?
It would be President Green and the Personnel and Administration Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Aldrich.
No questions.
Also, I would add probably also this committee, the budget committee would have a say in that as well, because you all have the ability to kind of remove funds from departmental budgets. So if you feel as though someone's abusing the cell phone policy, you could always strike the cell phone budget from that department's budget request.
One quick comment, Madam Chair.
Alderman Aldrich, you're recognized.
And then I see Alderwoman Pam Boyd's hand up. Just to add on to Alderman Cohn's point of what the budget can do. Hopefully very soon we could be able to increase too if we would like this idea too. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Alderman Cone, in regards to this legislation. And so again, you're showing that the city created in the 1900s is totally behind, and you're focusing on things that are of importance will help us to do the work that we need to do. I agree. The people that's in office that are working need to have their own phones and not use their personal phones. But I guess my issue is that going to cause a conflict? You know, because I mean, let's be real, people misuse, you know, their privileges on what they do. So would they have a way to monitor those calls or?
So the department would receive the bills for those cell phones. So if there is any misuse, it would be on the manager to manage that, in addition to working with the Department of Personnel to manage any, violations of our ITSA policy. So as I mentioned, Alderwoman, the ordinance that I'm proposing here through this board bill enshrines in the law that they have to adhere with our ITSA policy. So if there's violations of that, it becomes a personnel matter and they would have to manage that.
So they'll be trained. So they'll have a training before they issue those phones where they're assigned to say they're aware of the guidelines.
That's not specifically spelled out in the board bill, but I would imagine that personnel already has a policy on the books, so they would be, I could work with the personnel director to see if there's either a training or a acknowledgement form that's included, with new hires when they come on, to make sure that they're acknowledging the ITSA policies for the city with respect to cell phone usage and other electronic data uses.
Okay, because most companies that I've worked, you do have to sign a document to say that you will only use it for, business of that company, nothing else. And so that's why I was asking, is it something that we'll have in place for that?
So there are currently policies in place. I did not want to specify the language of those policies in this board bill because I didn't want to get into another situation where, technology evolves and things change and we have to go back and update an ordinance. I think the ordinance should be providing a high level framework for what the Board of Aldermen sees as permissible use. And then it would be up to the Department of Personnel and the, ITSA, the IT department for the city, to establish those policies with respect to use. And then also, probably the Department of Finance as well, in terms of if there are reimbursements and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Cohn, and I'm going to apologize. I hadn't read through this bill in its entirety prior to this hearing. So I'm just kind of catching up here. But the way I'm understanding this is, in addition to providing a framework for employees to have a cell phone, I'm reading the previous, language here at the bottom of the bill that we're striking out that says that employees of the city of St. Louis can't have a cell phone without a resolution of the Board of Aldermen. This kind of allows for departments to have cell phone use. But what I'm also hearing is that there's a requirement that electronic devices used for official business have to be logged with the city and are subject to sunshine request. So one of the questions I have, and I think that's a good policy. I think you bring up a really important issue on the front end of this, that official communication is happening and isn't documented and isn't subject to sunshine request necessarily. And we're seeing, we've seen recently, issues in the news where, elected officials, their cell phones have been sunshined, et cetera, et cetera. And the question would be, is your personal cell phone sunshineable because you've used it for official business, and that's that sort of thing. So I think that this sort of policy is a good idea. What I'm not clear about is then if we pass this, is any city employee, the Board of Aldermen, but also, other members, the health department or the building division, other members of the sort of city staff that are not issued an official cell phone, is their personal cell phone then subject to this? And if they happen to use their personal cell phone for official business, what are the implications? I think this is a really important issue, but I don't know that that's clearly outlined here unless I'm missing it. So in other words,
that wouldn't be outlined here, Alderwoman, because that's personal cell phone use that would be established underneath either the Sunshine Law or a policy within. So again, this is just establishing, a framework for allowing the city employees to be able to utilize a city issued cell phone. The policies around that would have to be, generated through the Department of Personnel, ITSA, and the Finance Department, especially respective of personal cell phone use for city business.
I'm not sure.
But with respect to, the example that you provided, having someone, use a personal cell phone for city business, we all know that is happening currently because no one is really following the ordinance as it was written back in the 1990s. And so, I've used the NIS as an example. We all know that there are NIS out there that have cell phones. They're using cell phones.
I don't know why my phone or my computer alerted everyone that I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear. I just, I thought someone was talking. So lost train of thought there, but I think at the end of the day, this is essentially establishing a policy for city-owned cell phones. And then if there are people who are using their personal cell phone for city purposes, that's a conversation that they need to have with their manager as to whether or not they should be issued a city-owned cell phone. And if they're not, issuing a city-owned cell phone, should they be using that personal device for government business?
Okay, so does this provide for any requirement that employees are not using their, I guess that is what I'm trying to figure out, is if this is a policy that would endanger some of our city employees. I'm not saying that we should, excuse me, Alderman, is just for clarification, because that way we can set the expectation with our employees well. I'm not necessarily saying that we shouldn't do that, because certainly if we're supplying city-owned cell phones, they should be using that as a priority, but just want to make sure we're not putting folks in jeopardy.
So again, this is not the policy. The policy would be developed by finance, by ITSA, by personnel. So the policy side of things would be established by those departments. This is providing a framework for city employees to be able to be issued city-owned cell phones, which they are currently not able to do.
Okay.
And that would be that decision would be left to the department head versus right now the Board of Aldermen passing a resolution with a list of employees.
Understood. Okay, so this would be more or less providing the framework, and what you were speaking to earlier, with regards to, the sort of requirement that they use those cell phones as opposed to their personal cell phones would be a matter of policy that would come after this.
Correct.
Okay. It looks like going through the committee here, we have an additional question from the Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I was just going to jump in on that, the conversation that you was having with Alderman Cone. I think actually this bill is kind of helpful because if I'm not mistaken, per Sunshine, even because since we're elected and we're doing city government, our personal phones currently right now if you talk about city business, I've got a request about sunshine with marijuana, and that also relates to my with the bill I'm working on. That goes to my personal phone. So being able to have a work phone and being able to only talk about city business, I think on that work phone kind of protects city employees and city workers who currently do not have that ability to have the cell phone. And I do know for some of the departments that do have cell phones, like Alderman Cone said, IT is very protective of those phones. Those phones are tracked. I know there's requirements around like that they can't download certain apps. The phone is just restricted to, since IT would be in control of it, it would just really be restrictive to be able to make calls, do your emails, and be able to do text message, but it wouldn't be able to like, you know, download Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. So it's a IT, I think, do a really good job at restricting what that phone is able to do and what the phone is not able to do to make sure that it's not being misused. And I think, like I say, I think it's a safety measure, a safety net for city employees because currently, right now, all of us that text each other about city business, due to the sunshine law, we would if somebody sunshined us, we have to turn it over even on our personal cell phone. So.
Yeah, Alderman, I appreciate that clarification. I do think as a matter of good business, it would be helpful if we all had those official phones. Just to keep the separation would be extremely helpful and aid in that, you know, sort of government transparency. I think it would be good for everyone if we were to move in that direction. Okay, seeing no additional questions, I'll entertain a vote. Oh, excuse me, Alderwoman Saunier, do you have a question?
Yes, I would like to just be added as co-sponsor.
Okay,
Noted,
Madam Clerk.
noted.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 70.
I make a motion.
Excuse me, could I ask one more question? If
Yes,
this,
Alderman coming from the 15th.
yeah, I'm sorry. If this goes through, the question is, so those departments would consume the cost of getting those phones, or who would burden that cost?
It would be in the department and budget, Alderwoman.
Okay, I was just saying, so we're struggling with budgets as it is. Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that this outlines the possibility without mandating it or providing a funding mechanism for it. So
it would be a request that they'd have to make through the annual budgetary process. So, you know, some departments may choose not to do it and just keep their landlines as, you know, as it were right now. But this provides the opportunity for those department heads to have the conversation with, you know, the administration, with their staff, et cetera. And if they choose to, they can move forward with getting a city issued cell phone.
okay, thank you, Alderman Cone. With that, I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 70.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 70 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Right.
Alderwoman Velasquez,
Aye.
Alderwoman Saunier,
Aye.
Alderman Aldrin.
Aye.
Chair Spencer.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
With that, Board Bill number 70 passes the Budget and Public Employees Committee with a due pass recommendation. Item number 2 is Board Bill number 70. Alderman Browning, you're recognized on Board Bill number 74.
Thank you, and thank you to the members of the committee for being here today. This board bill is an update to our senior property tax credit that we passed earlier this year. The Missouri legislature updated the language, and so I have a quick presentation for you all. If you would allow me to either share my screen or if the clerk could share it, this will be a very brief presentation, and we will get you back to your Wednesday mornings.
You can go ahead and share it, Mr. Alderman Cone. Alderman Browning.
Thank you.
Okay.
Working on that right now. All right, can you all see my screen?
We can.
Okay. So let me just. All right, so Board Bill 74. As I said, this is an update to the senior property tax credit. We just going to visit the timeline that we had. The last year, the Senate passed a bill 190 into law that allowed for seniors to freeze their tax rate. And the Board of Aldermen passed our own version of that, really putting our own rules on it to be more responsible for our city, making sure that people who didn't need it couldn't apply. That is, the people that already had a lot of wealth, and also making sure that our taxing districts weren't affected, such as the schools or the museums or the anything else. In December, the mayor signed Board Bill 141, and then this year, the Senate passed an update to their law. They realized that the law had some language cleanup that was needed. And so they passed a new version, and this is our version updating our language to match that state language. So what does that do? Well, it reflects that change. The top two things that it really does is it makes it so that we're no longer depending on Social Security credits. We are moving down to anyone that's 62 years or older can apply for this, making sure that really firefighters, teachers, and railroad workers are now eligible, which they had some challenges before with the Social Security credits. This continues to protect the local taxing authorities, so we're not changing that. We want to continue to protect the public schools, the community college, the library, zoo, museum, developmental disability resource board, community mental health fund. There's a lot of things that we have taxing districts for that are really good things in our city, and we don't want them to lose out on that money. So we're not changing anything there. We are doing this because this is beneficial to seniors in our city. This is something that people can get a little extra money in their pocket, especially if they're on a fixed income. Sometimes we know that you might live in a house for 30, 40 years and the taxes keep going up on you, but now you're on a fixed income and you can't keep up with it. So it's a tool to help people stay in their homes and really just say thank you to the people who have stuck around in our city and are still committed to, you know, keeping our community stable and being really vital members of our community. This also mitigates housing and eviction issues. Again, making sure that as other costs go up, their property taxes don't if they apply for this program. There is a section by section overview of what we've got going on here. So the first section of this bill just amends the previous ordinance. There's no changes in section 2. In section 3, we're defining the eligible credit amount to clarify that this is based off of the eligible taxpayer's initial credit year. The other thing that this board bill does, I mentioned it does two things. The other thing this does is that if for whatever reason your tax liability becomes less in future years, this would then reset it to the lower amount. So previously, if it went down, you would just stay at the same level it was frozen at. Now, if it goes down, your freeze will go down with it, which will definitely benefit the seniors there. Again, there's just some other language cleanups. This isn't really complicated, but this is definitely to make sure that we are still in compliance with state law. So we have updates on other definitions, homestead eligibility, making sure that we make it clear that if you have a home that's under tax abatement or a TIF, you will not be eligible for this tax credit. It also clarifies that if you're delinquent on your taxes or any penalties owed to the city of St. Louis, that you would not be eligible. So just a few more clarifications there. And that's it. I do have the policy director from the mayor's office, Casey Milberg, here. She's in the attendees section. And if you have any questions, she's also available to answer this. We worked closely with the mayor's office in drafting this update. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. Turning it over to the committee for questions, Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. As usual, you in total detail in what you do. So thank you so much.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions.
Alderwoman Sonier.
No questions. I'm just glad that we are making sure that we're mirroring our language with the state so that our programs are implementable.
Alderwoman, we've gone through Alderman Aldridge.
No questions, please add me as a co-sponsor.
Okay, and with that, I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 74.
I'll make a motion that we pass Board Bill 74 with a due pass recommendation.
I'm sorry, I think we have Alderwoman Sonier's hand up.
I just wanted to request to be added as a co-sponsor, and also I'm happy to second.
Noted.
Next, excellent.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objections to previous roll, consider Board Bill 74 passed with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you all.
I'd like to now turn over the chairmanship to my Vice Chair, Alderwoman Boyd, so I can go ahead and introduce Board Bill number 82.
Okay. What's the board bill? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Board Bill 82. I'll go ahead and introduce it. If you don't mind.
Yeah, would you
Okay.
please?
Okay, Board Bill number 82. This is a follow-up to the bill, to the amendment that was put forward and led by Alderman from the 14th during the budget cycle to provide additional funding to the Circuit Attorney's Office for additional staffing for the Circuit Attorney's Office. At this point, I'd like to invite Rebecca Rentschler from the Circuit Attorney's Office to speak about the specifics of what this bill does, just to provide for those additional staff members within the Circuit Attorney's Office.
Thank you so much, Chair Spencer and all the members of the committee. It's great to be here with you this morning. Board Bill 82 simply allows us to do a couple updates to add positions that were added during the budget process. Those two positions are the Public Information Officer and the Human Resources Manager, which your committee and then the full board added to us. So that's really the biggest thing, is adding those two positions to our pay bill so we can get them set up in Oracle. We also did a little cleanup on some pay grades and just some shifting around of things, nothing out of the ordinary. And then we did no adjustments to any of the pay grades themselves. So it's super simple, adding the two positions, making 5 adjustments to pay grades for current positions, just to clean it up a little bit and streamline things. But I think that's basically it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to the committee. Does any committee members have any questions? Alderwoman Velazquez, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, Alderman Oldenburg, is he still on? Because I can't.
I am. No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Sonier? Is that a no?
No question.
Is Alderman Rashid on? Okay. All right, I'll turn it back over to the sponsor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just want to thank Rebecca for being here today on such short notice. We held this committee hearing. We were thinking that we were going to have additional hearings of the full board this summer, so we could get this through, so you can get those positions hired. You're going to have to wait until September now anyway, because our board meeting's been canceled on Friday. We're not going to be having those additional meetings. But nonetheless, this gets us one step closer to getting those positions official for you. So I wanted to thank you and your office for coming before us here this morning. And with that, I'll ask for favorable consideration of the committee.
Can I be added as a co-sponsor, Madam Clerk?
Noted.
Oh, I thought you were Alderman from the 14th. You should have been added as a co-sponsor. So if that didn't happen on the front end of this, it was my apologies. You really led the effort to make sure that the funding for these staff persons and for the Circuit Attorney's Office was possible through the budget process.
I
It
did
was
see
a-
my name, Alderman from
Okay.
on there.
So maybe it's already on there, but also I probably missed questions. I do also want to thank you, Madam Chair. It was teamwork here from 14th to 8th Ward. Like you say, through the budget, we got it done, but you're continuing the process to make sure that the circuit attorney is staffed up from our circuit attorney coming in and making some requests. I think that was a big win that we was able to deliver through the budget process under your leadership. So thank you for kind of doing it on the other end to actually make sure those funds go to those positions to make that office be strong.
Alderwoman Velazquez, did you have a question?
Yep, I was just gonna say, Madam Clerk and Madam Vice Chair or Madam Chair, can I be added as a co-sponsor as well?
Noted.
And with that, I guess I'm having taken back the chairmanship. I will entertain a motion or on the board bill number 82, excuse me.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
previous row.
Hearing no objections to previous roll, we've unanimously passed all three board bills out of committee with a due pass recommendation here today. Seeing no other items on the agenda for business today, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Do we have any excuse, Madam Chair?
Everyone was present.
Everyone was,
Everyone was present. Okay. I'm just trying to keep us on point.
you're right. And you know what? I think this was our first official hearing, committee hearing that didn't have an absence. So good job, everyone.
A little long, but we got there.
We did. Okay. With that, I'll take a
Question, did we have minutes, previous minutes?
We did. We had approval of the minutes. That was our first order of business.
I'm just making sure we on point. That's all. I don't want us to be looking ragged.
I'm gonna get Alderwoman Boyd a cup of coffee. I'm just kidding.
No, I need no more.
Too much coffee. Okay. Do I have an emotion? Do I have an emotion? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I second that emotion. I moved. Sorry.
Roll call.
Okay, so who moved? So who was it? It was 6 and who adjourned? I didn't get that.
I believe Alderwoman.
The chair adjourned and then Vasquez seconded.
And dang, come on, you're not even gonna give me credit for my pun over there?
Yeah, she did a temptation thing, second in motion. So she did it.
And we all need to go home.
We do. It's time. Thank you, guys and ladies.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Is this the after party?